What up, though, people? It is your boy Brandon Dent, aka Detroit Kool-Aid. Man, listen, repping Woodward Sports, Woodward Pistons, and today I got Steve. Bro, what do we need to know about Ausar Thompson? That's why we're here to talk today. The 2023 NBA Draft Prospect Profile. It's a series we're going to be doing. It's going to be hosted primarily by Steve. I'm just here to keep him and Joe D comfortable. That's all. That's all. And Tayshawn wanted to come along for the ride as well. But listen, Steve, this guy, he puts in a lot of work to know these draft prospects. He's been doing it for some time. He's written about it. He's done videos about it. He does podcasts about it. I'll let you tell the people a little bit more about it, Steve.
So yeah, today we're looking at 6'7", 207-pound Ausar Thompson out of the Overtime Elite. Profiles as a shooting guard through power forward, probably more of a small forward though with that size, 6'7". 207. His strengths, number one, is this is somebody that is a natural scorer and a great athlete. And number three is defensive ability. He has the two things you want in a high-level defender, which is effort and desire. Effort and desire melded into one. And the other one is the combination of athleticism and skill to be able to do it. You know, you don't see too many guys on the wing be able to do that.
And let me stop you right there because you're already saying things that I know people would love to see on this Pistons team this year. You know, just in addition to, I believe that these guys are trying hard. They are really trying hard this year. But to have guys that are skilled in this would be an amazing thing because when just kind of looking at Ausar Thompson, you see a guy who's not just skilled, but also tries hard. And I want to be able to see that on this roster, man, especially when you talk about defensive intensity, effort, versatility, strength, and more. Definitely.
Yeah, so natural scorer right now is scoring 17.2 points per game, pulling in 7.8 rebounds, dishing out 5.2 assists, getting 2.8 steals per game, and then 1.4 blocks per game to go along with that. His shooting splits are 59.5% from two-point range, 33.3% from three-point range, and then 63.6% from the free throw line. Also not turning the ball over a lot, only 2.9 turnovers per game, which is always a good sign when you have almost 2-1 assists to turnover ratio. The main thing he has worked on this season is the jump shot. He's somebody that I really like because of the way the jump shot has come along, both he and his brother. And I'll only mention Amen a little bit. I try to separate the two because I see them as completely different players. I mean, Asar took, I think it was 14 or 13 threes during the preseason in 4 games. He hit one of those shots. But it was good that he kept putting them up because that's what you have to do if you're a bad shooter. The only way to get better is to do it under live fire. And then the season starts, first game, he is 3 of 6. Second game goes 0 for 2. Next game, 2 of 4. Then 1 of 2, 0 4, 2 of 5, 2 of 5, 1 of 2, and then 0 of 3 in this last game. He's putting them up. That's, again, to me, that's the big thing about trying to become a better shooter is doing it under live fire. And he's continuing to do it. He doesn't care if he misses. He doesn't care if he rims. This is what I call the Giannis gene. If I don't care if I look cool doing it. I just know that I need to put the work in. In addition to that, and the form looks good. It's better than his brother because it's less mechanical is what I'll say. Like with Amen, you can kind of see the gears still turning of like him trying to think about setting speed and whatever with Asar, especially in catch and shoot situations. It's like boom, boom. It's a little bit more sped up. Still needs to iron out some kinks, and the NBA will have him do that. But I definitely buy into him as like a corner 3 shooter to start his career, and just the work he's already put in one off season to be a better 3-point shooter like this is legit. Good passer too, with like 5.2 assists. He's always keeping the ball moving, keeping his head up, looking for open teammates. And then the one thing I think that he's really, really good at, maybe the best in this class, is cutting and being a lob threat. Like the cuts he makes are just super instinctual. He always finds somebody sleeping backdoor, and he's always ready to catch lobs. Like his teammates and especially his brother know, like, oh, he's open, he's cutting there. They throw the ball up, 2 easy points.
Listen, and that's I was going to stop you because I'm glad that you went there because I was going to say athletically on this Pistons team right now. In terms of athleticism, where would you slot him in terms of the most athletic player?
Number 1, 2, and 3. No slight to Ivy, but
we got to compare. We got to ask the questions from a Pistons perspective, so I had to.
Yeah, Ivy is more like straight line speed and transition, whereas Asar has shown he can translate this into half court setting as well. In addition to being that transition threat, and it translates over to the defensive side where he can slide his feet and stay with quick guards. He can have the strength and the leaping ability to handle bigger guys. I don't think he can quite guard up to the center position, but like power forwards, I think he could handle. There are probably very few in the NBA, something like Pascal Siakam or some power forwards that still like are wide in the hips and have the Zebo low center of gravity. There's just not that many guys left like that anymore. But I think they might give him problems. There just aren't that many dudes at that size and with that kind of game that are just going to back him down a lot. So I think his leaping ability, his lateral ability show up on both ends of the court, which unfortunately for Ivy hasn't quite shown up yet.
Not yet. And so with a guy like Ausar Thompson, he becomes one of those guys that it doesn't really matter where he slots positionally because he could do
Yeah.
so many different things. He literally is one of those best player available type guys when he's on the board around his draft positioning or wherever he's projected because he can do so many things. I know that there's a couple guys that you compared him to. I didn't want to take you outside of your flow of the that you were going in as it relates to the bullet points here. But his versatility on that end of the court, it just excites me. I'm not gonna steal the thunder of the players of the NBA accounts. I
Well,
want
is
to get
there?
them like,
Yeah.
I,
Is
no,
there one that you've noticed? I would be intrigued to know if like you've seen him and then you're like, oh, he reminds me of so and
well, what I was gonna say is this. Look, I got this here.
so.
We got a gentleman here who I know is just like a little bit taller, but in terms of when you talk about some of the defensive things and you're kind of looking at what he can do, what do you think when you think Ausar Thompson and Tayshaun Prince on the defensive end?
Yeah, I
Because I know he's not a
mean,
finished product yet, but
yeah,
there's some
I
flashes.
definitely think Asar has more offensive upside than Tayshaun had for sure, but
Mhm.
defensively, absolutely. Tayshaun's what I like to call the mortar player, where when you're building a brick wall, you need the mortar to fill in the cracks and to keep the wall stable. Like that's the
Yeah,
kind of player Tayshaun was. He didn't take up shots, he didn't take up the defensive attention, but he did every last little single thing that kept the wall intact. He did the chase down blocks. He's the one guarding LeBron in the playoffs. He's able to space the floor out consistently or to clean up junk on misses for other guys on offense. He just fills in all the cracks to where like she needs the shots. Mr. Big Shot's going to take the clutch shots. Rip's going to just take up a lot of usage and shots,
yeah,
and Tayshaun is going to supplement all of that. And again, on defense, like he can take the toughest assignment, so she doesn't have to be running around too much. Ben can lock down everything within like 10 feet, and then the other guys, they got the lesser of the defensive matchups. Asar could do that too, and then with the double beef lineup with Beef Stew already able to switch and lock down guys. We've seen him guard the best
yeah.
point guards and do a pretty good job already. Able to
Duran,
handle
man,
power
he's done it too.
forwards. Yeah, and Duran's just getting better, and then you're going to want to have him as the last line of defense. So add Asar on top of that, then Cade, Ivy, whoever the other two players
Yeah,
out there, they don't need to take the tough matchup anymore.
I was just about to say. So what you're telling me is that the Pistons are trying to get out. They're trying to be even more future era than the future era lineups we see on offense. They're trying to make sure that they can be positionless on defense as well.
Yep. Yeah,
Basically, their guys
absolutely.
can switch and switch and switch because right now we see a team that can't really do that, and the defense is putting them in bad positions. We see that when Duran and Stu are in there, they're holding their own. And then when they have to go to the bench and the defense gets a little bit weaker, gets a little less versatile. I won't say weaker, I'll say a little less versatile. The defense plays them right into it. They get a lot more shifty. They start doing a lot more pick and rolls. They start having guys cutting a lot more, a lot more pin downs and back screens, and it just starts to discombobulate. Ivy's another one that we talk about. He has to kind of learn that type of defense as well. He
Yeah.
has to. So I like the direction that they're going in. If Ausar Thompson is a guy that they're looking at, so he would fit, I guess, the defensive scheme or style that the Pistons are trying to restore or develop too. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. So where are
Yeah,
we at
absolutely.
next? Huh?
The things he needs to work on in his game, number one is his handle. If he definitely wants to be like a secondary or tertiary creator, then he needs to tighten that up. He's a little too loose with it. You can get in there and kind of dig it out. NBA players will definitely be hunting that. At first, it's hard too because like OT, he's not running a ton of pick and roll, so it's hard to know like how well he operates in that. Definitely
True that.
an isolation scorer for sure because of his. It's a solid handle, but in the NBA, you got to be a lot better if you're going to be a primary creator. And his athleticism again will pop. If he gets a step on you, forget it. Like you're going to foul him, or it's going to be. That's just how it's going to be. I mean, if you really, 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 really want to push forward on it, like he needs to develop more of a mid range. He does have this nice hook shot. Like any Michigan fans out there,
Hey, go
Michigan fans out there,
blue.
if you remember
Go
Xavier
blue.
Simpson, he had that running hook shot where it looked like he was
Oh
just
yeah.
driving baseline into nowhere, and then he would
That little shot
put it
put.
up. Yeah, exactly. So Asar can do that every now and then. He has a little bit of a post-up game. I don't know that I would want that, but if he's going to be like handling the ball more, and you really, really, really want to push him as one of your main guys, then yeah, something like a floater, some kind of mid-range in there. But I think that's more
Yeah.
nitpicky than anything else, and we'll talk about it when we get to the comps here. And then on
I'm
defense,
ready
it's
for
just
that
like
part now.
yeah. On defense, it's just every other rookie. You clean up your footwork, stay more disciplined. Don't jump on so many pump fakes. But you can say that about so many people, just his effort level. And again, the athleticism and the skill he already displays, he's like 3 steps ahead of the competition on that end. They'll just need to clean up things. And then the shot, he will have to continue to put in work to where it's not as slow. It needs to be more of a boom, boom type of action. But we've seen guys like this come in the league before. If you listen to the podcast, Resball episode number 2 was on the Thompson twins and does shooting even matter? And I profiled guys that had terrible shooting numbers coming in that had under 70% from the free throw line and under 30% from 3. And there were guys that ended up being a success, like Pascal Siakam, like DeJounte Murray, like a Jaylen Brown. So I think he can be one of those 3 guys. So not that those are the comps, but
Yep.
we'll get to that here in a minute.
And you know what? I'm encouraged with how the current young Pistons players are developing with shooting. Regardless of what people think, Jaden Ivey has only seen his 3-point percentage go up. Like he's up to 30 something percent, 38%, I think, over the last 10, 15 games. Sadiq Bey, 40% over the last 15 games. Killian's has gone up. Stu is shooting 38% on the year. So, and even some of these guys getting into the mid-range, Cade, Killian, even Sadiq Bey now starting to get into the mid-range, Alec Burks and such. Jaden Ivey saying he's working on it now with Alec Burks and other people on the squad. I would be encouraged with to believe that Ausar Thompson is going to get what he needs to be able to effectively shoot in that mid-range, to be able to be effective in that mid-range. So hopefully we can get Steve back on here in a little bit. I know his internet was going out, and then we can get his best NBA comps. Now, look, I'm not going to steal his thunder. We got him back quickly. See, Steve, look, bro, almost stole your thunder. I was about to be like, his NBA comp is Tayshaun Prince. No, I'm just playing.
Yeah. This mouse almost sabotaged me. So to me, at a high, I see him because I don't really like to give a 1-for-1 comp until like we see the full year of where they're at before they go in the draft. But the more and more I look at it, is a high level defender, number 1, but also that can score and be one of your primary guys. So I find right now he falls somewhere for me between Ron Artest / Meta World Peace and Andre Iguodala. I lean more towards the Artest comp. Artest was 6'7". Artest was Meta was 6'7", 260, so he's obviously bulkier, but defensive player of the year candidate a lot of times. One-time All-Star. He was defensive player of the year in 03, 04, 4-time All-Defense. Like that to me seems plausible for Asar because of all the tools. And Meta also had seasons where he scored 24.6 points per game in Indiana. There was that one year, but mostly around like 15 to 18 points per game. His career average over 17 years was 13.2. And really it was between the seasons of 2001, 2002 season until 2008, 2009.
What was the rest of our test? What was the rebounds and assists looking like for our test?
So career averages for Artest were 4.4 rebounds, 4.5 rebounds, and 2.7 assists. But in the best years, he was averaging like over 5 rebounds and over three
Three
assists.
or
One
four assists.
year,
Yeah.
that one Sacramento year, he was like 4.2 assists when he had to like, get
Yeah.
more
So
usage
at his
there.
most versatile is kind of like what we can expect, the game of Ausar Thompson to kind of be like, this, defensive
Yeah, and
minded, no, yeah,
career
defensive
average
minded versatile guy.
33.9. Yeah, and career average from three was 33.9%. That seems realistic for a star. I'm not saying he's going to come in and be Reggie Miller, right? He's going to iron out some kinks. And like meta here, there are going to be some
I don't
seasons
want no
where
Reggie
you're
Miller's
going
up in here.
to, yeah, you're going to get like 21.5, but then there are going to be other seasons where you get 41.2 and 38, 39. As he got older, he became a better shooter, which I could see again with Asar. But number one is that defensive versatility. The other part of it, again, I said, is somewhere between meta and Andre Iguodala. I lean more towards Artest just because I think he was a scorer for a lot longer. Iguodala really stopped being a primary scorer once he got to Golden State and became more of the specialty defender. But I mean, he had some explosive seasons in Philadelphia, and that one season he had in Denver. At his height, he had 19.9 points per game, 5.4 rebounds, 4.8 assists. Less of a
Mm.
three-point shooter, 33%. I think a couple of years he shot like 39, and then most of the years though was like under 33%. And he was more of a guard. I think Asar is more of a wing forward on
Okay.
that side, but I think the defensive impact can be the same. I mean, Iguodala won a Finals MVP, basically just frustrating LeBron, right? That's the type of
Yep.
defender still that I think Asar can be. And I also think he's a good passer the same way Iguodala is. There were times where they tried him at point guard, but he's not really a point guard. I think it could be the same for Asar, where like you could try him there, but it's not his best position. He is better as a wing, where he can take advantage of mismatches there, not exactly run the offense.
Yep. Yeah. And I know that before, we went live, before we started recording, we were talking about who he may compare to on the Pistons roster, or the types of players that we thought could play that role on the Pistons roster. And I know that before the season we were wondering who is going to fill in for Jeremy Grant, 6'9", 7'3" wingspan, and we see that they really miss his versatility. And seeing him, I know a lot of people made a lot of fuss about how much he scored, but defensively he was guarding people in the post, he was defending people on the perimeter, he was getting his hands in the passing lane, he was diving on the floor. He was doing a lot of the little things and showing I can really be out here to do anything on either side of the court, man. And we believe that Isaiah Livers could be a guy that could kind of take up some of that role. There was a lot of people who believed, hey, he's kind of ready to take that step. His defense is there, and he has some similar measurables. Honestly, more similar measurables to Ron Artest. He's 6'7.25". What is he? Yeah, about 6'7.25". With the let's see, his wingspan 6'9.25", weight 231. And I when I asked you, listen, Ausar Thompson, Isaiah Livers, the defensive comp, is it comparable? You said what effectively?
I mean, Asar is here and Livers is here. No disrespect to Livers,
No
go blue. I
disrespect.
mean, I'm alum, but again, the athleticism and the skill Livers just does not possess. He definitely does not possess that
Yeah.
athleticism
And
to get
we
up
gotta
and to be
ask it
able to
though.
challenge.
We gotta ask it. We gotta compare it, because think about it. When you look at Jeremy Grant, you look at Isaiah Livers, there's differences there in their athleticism and in what they can do and in their measurables. And we still, to a degree, believed maybe he can do it. And now we're looking at Ausar Thompson, who's 6'7" and like 207, soaking wet, man. And so you ask the question, if Isaiah Livers is a little bit bulkier and can't really do all those things, what sets Ausar Thompson apart? And that's why I'm glad you stated some of those other, not just intangibles, but skill sets as relates to his athleticism, his speed, his defensive IQ. Those things matter. Some guys can play good defense. They can be taught to play good defense. That doesn't really mean that they have the best of basketball IQ. The ability to say, you know what, I know that my defensive training tells me, good defense tells me to be here, but I see this guy cutting back door. My man fell asleep. My defensive IQ says drop back and cover the rim and then get back to my guy. those are the types of things that I want to see out of these guys. And I know that, we're not picking on them. I know that Jaden Ivey has had kind of a little rough go at that, especially from the wing and the guard position of getting down.
Well, yeah, he's stuck in a bad spot where he has to be the
Yeah.
point guard defender. So
Yeah. But this is the year that I believe you go through these things. I think next year you're gonna see such a different Jaden Ivey as it relates to just that confused and that frustration, that frustrated look kind of on his face. I don't think we're gonna see that next year at all from Jaden Ivey. The what players normally go through, yes, but in terms of him looking like he's still learning on the court, that's gonna be gone. He's learned basketball his whole life. This, I believe, is just that transition. I think if he was a little bit more methodical as Cade, I think that we would probably see that play out more in his expression than what we do now. But as it relates to Ausar Thompson, you believe that defensively, if he came to this team, where does he slot in terms of our top defensive players? Because we've talked about we don't have many, defensive specialties, players. We don't have like a lot of guys who are individually skilled at, hey, they're a defender. So much so that we're like, hey, Killian got it. And then rookie Duren, yeah, it's just like Stu. And then we're just like, so where does, just in terms of projections, I'm not saying he comes in day one and is that guy, but where do you see him in terms of this team, projection when they're winning and such? Where would he slot defensively?
he would be the top wing defender, I would think, because Stu. I mean, the hope is the double beef lineup: Beef Stew and Jalen Duren remain there. Duren is the last line of defense as the rim protector. Can switch some. Stu is the main switch defender to be able to handle a bunch of different guys and make sure that if they can't get to Duren, and then Duren's the last line of defense, whereas Asar is going to be the person probably guarding KD, Giannis, those types of players in the playoffs to frustrate them and get them in their way. And if you're saying 6'7", 207, his wingspan's like 6'9", 6'10", somewhere in there. Is this somebody that really can defend? Grant Williams last year helped the Celtics beat the Bucks. He was one of the main reasons they were able to take that series with his defense just on Giannis. And Grant Williams is 6'6", so he's shorter. And again, it's more about desire, IQ, being able to buy into that role. I'm not sure what Grant's wingspan is. I feel like it's smaller than that. But again, it's more about the mentality. And if you have that athleticism or something to frustrate Giannis, you're not going to stop him, but you got to be able to frustrate him. And Grant definitely had the strength, where I think Asar has the explosiveness and has more lateral mobility than somebody like a Grant Williams. So I think he could be that number one wing defender. I still think Stu and Duren, I go back and forth on who's going to be number one there, just because I think they have so much versatility on both. And if Duren is as good of a rim protector as we think, he might win out because Stu does a lot of the little things. He might be like the more valuable to the integrity of the defense, but Duren might get more of the publicity and the hype.
I like it. Well, look, man, I think that's it, man. I think we got through everything. I think, and this was really good too. It answered a lot of questions for me. I wanted to also be able to ask some questions from a Pistons perspective as well. Let you be able to just give who the player is and then give the perspective of how this person would look on the Pistons. So we got a feel for athletically, he would be our top 1, 2, and 3 athletic person or player on the team, according to Steve. And that excites me. That excites me because we need to get better in that department. Just seeing the things that Ivy can do already, just a burst of speed. Every commentator's like, he's fast. And then when he gets up and dunks in the half court, people are like, wow, he can do that too. So to know we can add another player like that. We see Duren starting to get really, really comfortable in the pick and roll as well. Ausar Thompson, Jalen Duren pick and rolls.
Yeah, and the other comp that other people have made, that it's not my comp, is Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins took a while for the shot to come around, but he had that athleticism, and also it took him a while to understand how to use his athleticism on defense. I could see that as well. That's another comp that makes a ton of sense. I just think that his defensive impact is going to be felt more sooner, for a lot longer. And Wiggins, it just didn't seem to care about defense as much as Asar already has.
That's what I was gonna say. It seemed like to me, Wiggins came in with this reputation of like, yo, this dude can gun. Like he was good on offense. Not that people said he was horrible on defense or anything, but
Yeah,
when I look at
everybody
his
was like, "Oh, he's going to be a great defender." Yeah, but it just yeah.
yeah, they just kind of just gave it to him. Not that there was anything that looked atrocious on tape, but I don't
Mhm.
remember anything just from that time that was like, yo, man, his defense is crazy. But with Ausar Thompson, that's one of the things that people state. Hey, his defensive potential is why he's up here in the top 10. Yeah, he does these other good things. Yeah, he might have dropped from, before when they thought he was like maybe a top 3, 4, or 5 prospect to maybe what 8, 9, 10 now, you would say?
Oh, for Asar,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Where
he's
would you
gone up. Honestly, he was probably like 10. I have him honestly at number 3 right now. If the Pistons had the number 3 pick, I would
that was
argue
my
for
last,
him
that was my
because
question.
of the defense, the upside on offense to be a primary offensive guy. And with Cade, you already have
Wait.
the guy that's going to run the show. We just need somebody who has the high defensive ability like that and also a high offensive ability. The shot might take a while to come around, like Meta, like Iguodala, but you cannot replace that level of defense for anything, in my opinion.
Bro, that's making me excited because that was one of the reasons why I really, really, really was on to Jabari Smith last year. I was like, yo, his defensive ability with his offensive versatility, that just made me excited. And what you're telling me here is that this is a guy who you just stated, if there's no Vic, if there's no Scoot, you're taking Ausar Thompson. So yeah,
Yeah,
listen,
absolutely.
people, definitely check in some more on Ausar Thompson. We're gonna be doing these draft profiles once or twice a week. Definitely. As Steve, thank you for being well versed, well studied. Listen, bro, who do you want to break down next? Who are we breaking down next?
Why don't we go to Amen Thompson? I mean,
That's
you
us.
got to keep the twins together. And I know so many people. I've talked to so many people, especially in Pistons land, that want Amen. And we'll get to that fit and everything else next week.
Hey, let's do it. Well, hey, look, guys, Steve, is there any last or final words, man? Anything you want to say to people before we wrap up here?
No, just thanks so much for tuning in here. Check out the Res Ball Pod. I'll be talking about Jalen Hood-Schifino on the next one. I should be dropping tomorrow, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, yes, sir. Listen, for Woodward Sports, Woodward Pistons, for Steve, for the Res Ball Pod, my name is Brandon Dent, aka Detroit Kool-Aid, and we'll definitely check in next time, you guys.